What's good? It's your boy TheCzarr, All Rights Reserved. Now, I'm having some trouble keeping this video going. I'm getting all these calls. I don't know whether it's happening on purpose. I don't know what the deal is, but hit that Cash App as I continue to fight through these different distractions. You know what it is. $, capital THE, capital CZARR. If you don't like that, hit the paypal.me/TheCzarr down below, spelled the same way. Or you can hit the GoFundMe as we work towards our goal. Commenter Nation, working towards pioneering different things, dealing with the situations around what we have going, moving forward. I'm going to address Kings2Kongs question. It's called the waiting game. So we're dealing with many different instances, but the two main ones are premeditated versus plot. Now, there's many premeditated factors. There's many plot-related factors. The plot-related factors would be that we've seen the individual Dedrick D. Williams go and get the things needed, the different tools that would be needed in an instance of this sort to commit the crime right before the crime's committed. That's my issue with that. Let alone the individuals had on clothing that was noticeable, and we now see Michael Boatwright ditch the clothing in his grandma's car. That's a very troubling issue because we know real criminals would have got rid of everything. They wouldn't have just ditched it and kind of held on to it the way we've seen different individuals do so. Now, the other factor of premeditation relies solely in the fact that there had to be a mastermind to give some sort of cue, and not only that, to keep Tentacion's time held up so that these individuals had time to commit the crime. These are very prevalent factors we see in ultimate mastermind plots, and it's easy for us to take this and make issue of it. But what's not understood is the fact that there wasn't circumstantial evidence that clearly negated or in favor of any type of investigative plot to understand what was going on after the fact. Now, we don't know if shots were fired after the fact or preemptive. We don't even know if there was a type of poison in his blood because, as someone, a commenter brought up, ricin, a very common poison used in Japan and China. We see that this is used and you can't track it in a toxicology after a certain amount of time. That's how many murderers got away with poisoning people. And that's why I understand the poisoning theory that most people had. Now, the problem with this situation is where's the witness that they can't find that they questioned beforehand? This is very important because, as we know, there had to be certain moves made after the fact if this was a mastermind plot to cover up their backs. So we see a lot of covering up, and we don't see a lot of instances coming out with information to help deliver some sort of understanding around the situation. Now, a waiting game. This would have enticed me to be prepared fully before the victim pulled up, and I would know when to act. There had to be some sort of cue, especially being they left to go get the stuff. Or was it a mistake on someone's part? They left to get the stuff, then come back and still went through with it because they contacted the mastermind and he said it's good to go. What are the implications behind it? Because in my theory and understanding, I don't know if we could say clear cut that it was done basically at the spot. I don't have that because from what we understand, Dedrick had a conversation with his girlfriend. That's premeditated. That means that I had to have conversation before the instance that allowed me to contact and get in touch with my girl to let her know, hey, I'm about to do this, or hey, this is going on. I need this to go down. I also need to understand different details around the situation involving this because Kings2Kongs, we don't really see anything that shows us blatantly that the mastermind was here. That is why someone said a relative, because who was first on the scene. Let alone, I have direct photos that have individuals on the scene that I did not hear anything about being questioned. That's what I wanted to deliver to people. And when I open up my Patreon and my channel's running, that is one of the things I'm going to discuss in detail to my theory. Another thing, I will be going live August 23rd, so people can donate on there and we'll be able to discuss direct things to comments and questions. I will answer donators' questions and comments right away, and that will be going on around August 23rd. You'll get the date a little later, closer to the date. and we're going to discuss different things and factors around cases in general, because these are going to be formats that we're going to examine cases in and help to build a profile of understanding. That way, when we start delivering our theories and opinions, they're going to revolve around the truth, and they're going to revolve around direct information that we've been able to visibly see, gain from it, or circumstantial evidence delivered publicly. Now, another thing I want to add about this case, when we're looking at the investigators, they brought on a seasoned investigator to help, and he has not been able to help get towards the answer. That's a very important factor, because that means he cannot find different things he normally finds in cases where he's scored in, where he's directly brought someone down for evidence. This is troubling, because we see 4 suspects that are arguing their innocence, but at the same time of arguing their innocence, we see that they're delivering and presenting lawyers that are really asking the right questions. So don't be shocked if all 4 get the slide on this case because of how evidence was handled. Again, I repeat, as I said earlier, if evidence isn't handled right from the start, it's hard to get a conclusion. See it like this. If I don't step on the first step, how am I making it to the 12th step? And that's the problem with people not knowing their rights. That's the problem with people not knowing what to do in situations they get arrested. You know, they just get cuffed and they start running their mouth like songbirds. That's the problem, because they don't know how to operate. And the same thing with investigators. They don't know how to handle evidence. They don't know how to start an investigation. So how are you going to finish it if you don't know how to start it? Now, these photos I have are crazy. They have individuals walking up to the car after a body's in it, like that have nothing to do with the family, nothing to do with the case, nothing to do with anything. They're just kind of walking up, looking at it. So when I see this type of stuff, that's why foul play is called out. That's why any smart person would dictate foul play and see something going on that's wrong, because you're allowing for a lot of things to happen that shouldn't normally be happening. And that's part of what I'm saying. If you have all this happening, so many individuals interacting, how do you know that your DNA evidence is authentic? You don't. How do you, if you don't rope off the situation like they normally do, and you have guys acting like they're on Miami Beach, going surfing or on a vacation when it's a murder scene, how do you actually know you're questioning, interrogating, or gathering the right people? You see, I believe they made a mistake. They let vital people go and didn't question others. That's part of the problem. And that's what I'm saying. That's what needs to stop. There's many factors to it. That needs to stop. Don't do that. Cut that out. That's part of what's going on. And a lot of things went wrong. And that's why these men walk. If these men walk, it's not because they proved anything or anything around the case, more so than investigators messing up. Now, they claim they found evidence in Michael Boatwright's car. His grandma's car, to be specific. That takes the waiting game factor out, because if you think logically, Trayvon Newsom had a crash right after. So he ended up getting his car towed in a ticket. So how wasn't any type of instrument he used in the case, the alleged shooter, with him? It wasn't with him. So if it was a waiting game, that means that I would have had different things on me right after it happened I was looking to dispose of. That factor was taken out of the entire investigation. But at the same time, we see many factors that lead to premeditation versus a plot. Now, that's my problem. If it's premeditated, there's other factors that we're not seeing to a premeditation. That means the way they question it and how they organize circumstantial evidence and the direct evidence, which means witnesses, the way you ruled them out through social media when everybody saw implications to people glorifying his death and different things, you did it too quickly. You did everything too quickly, which tells me that there was a larger plan involved. The way you handle evidence is terrible. It literally led to certain people who may have been key witnesses. You let go of key witnesses, and now one of them's missing. That has come out. And regardless of if they were involved or not, if you drop key witnesses, you end up allowing your case to drop just as well. And you could not dictate whether they were key witnesses or not. That's part of the main problem. So someone was making quick, swift decisions off of some level of pride that they could not control to dictate objectively who could have been involved. When you lose objectivism in a case, you lose the ability to find a suspect. Period. because you got to be open-minded to different situations and perspectives, and you can't use prejudice when you're trying to find a criminal. You just can't, because you can't tell who's who unless you have direct video evidence. Now, you got sealed video, but at the same time, what does this sealed video show? Because if we look at the body, where's the toxicology report? Where's the autopsy that the family, namely the blood relative father, has been asking for? Another commenter has details about that we'll get into for that commenter. But there's many different factors of premeditation that and plotting that happened on the backside, and it seems mistakes that lead me to believe that they weren't in wait for this, especially what Dedrick D. Williams allegedly did, and the store clerk clarifies what he did. And here's my thing. It gets even more confusing because now this exact individual now coming out, he's asking for a private investigator to investigate the case, which means he thinks that evidence is either being landed on them, lied about them, or they're using a false witness. So there's some level of uncertainty through the suspect. That's bad, because now this publicly coming out makes investigators look like they're not doing their job because they don't have him against the ropes when he committed an alleged murder. This is a murder case, and you got one of them asking for a private investigation. That's not good. That's really not good. And as far as someone laying in wait, they were there with the van on the video, but I do not think that has anything to do with how the crime actually went down. Because again, I believe they missed a mastermind giving cues. So someone was giving cues to these young men to act, not to act, when to move, how to move. There was too many moving parts for you to dictate who was actually involved. And now that we're at this level of the case, it is very vital that they beat these lawyers at their game. So Kings2Kongs, the waiting game lies on premeditation or plotting in some way, shape, or form, but some of these devices are missing. So we're going to see how the case unfolds. Hit that Cash App. You know how I rock. All rights reserved.